Joe Orth and I are starting a podcast. What should we call it?
Hey, don't pick on me. You know why? Because this is why. Let's see what he says.
The Joe Show?
Give Joe the business?
That's right.
Cup of Joe.
Cup of Joe.
What is happening here?
Would you listen?
We'll give you a chance.
Thank you.
That's Joe.
That's Rooster.
And this is the Together We Shall podcast, episode 26. Welcome to the new year, brother. How are you?
2023. It's so weird to write it down. I saw something the other day that was remember Y2K was unplug everything tonight, December 31st, 1999. I'm like, wow, that's 24 years ago. That's crazy.
That's perspective. Yeah, we were in Louisiana for that. And all of our Louisiana relatives, not all of them, but many of them were stockpiling things like guns and wood and non-tech things. What were you doing in 1999, Joe?
I was a freshman in high school.
Yeah, okay. Were you stockpiling things? No, don't answer that.
I do remember though, my mom was like, "You can't go out tonight." New Year's and however old I was, 15, whatever. I'm like, I'm going out. That's happening.
Yeah.
And it's people thought it was crazy that people thought, the world was gonna end because the clock didn't know how to go.
Yeah, not enough zeros or something. But anyway, yeah, wild stuff. Is there anything we haven't gotten together for a podcast in a while now, with Lori being episode 25, and then all through December we were highlighting an episode on our Instagram, and it was really neat for me to go back and revisit every episode when I was making those posts. And it was cool to see which ones would then gain traction again. Really, really neat. But what did you maybe learn? I like to ask you, what have you learned since the last time we did a podcast? Is there anything?
That cold exposure is a real thing.
I love that you brought that up. I want you to tell everybody about your ice barrel, but I feel like that might come up in this episode. So I'm gonna pause you.
Okay.
Make a little note that you must talk about your ice barrel if you don't in the next 55 minutes. But what we're doing with this episode, friends, is we're kind of mimicking episode 1, the bromance, but we're flipping the script completely. Instead of me and Joe talking about our journey, we brought in a third party, and he is going to be the host of the podcast, and me and Joe are going to be his guests. So you might remember Tim Davis from episode 5. He was the one on the couch with us down there in Jacksonville, along with the ladies who were there for Run With Your Heart. But a lot of feedback came back on, oh my gosh, Tim needs his own podcast. Tim should be the host of a podcast. And I'm like, well, so it shall be. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am pausing and flipping the microphone over to Tim Davis, your host for episode 26, the first episode of 2023.
I'm terrified. I'm terrified of this.
I've been called a long list of things, and third party has never been involved in that titling. But no, thanks. I didn't see any of those comments. I saw a lot of stuff about kids being scared and wanting me to run because I didn't want to run. But I appreciate the invitation. It's been great knowing you guys. So I think it'll be fun to explore some of the questions that either people have submitted or that I have created. Like a good journalist, I guess I'll wear that hat today because I need hats. But like a good journalist, I used a lot of these questions as kind of an intro, but I've got follow-on questions. So I did my best to scour the social medias like I would. I apologize if I don't get people's names correctly, either in pronunciation or through their Instagram handles, but I'll do my best and hopefully get some help. So before I get started on real heavy hitting questions like your eating habits and, favorite color of things, I want to play a little game. All right. So if you remember the honeymoon game, which 70s, 80s, I don't know, that'd probably be Rooster's genre. I got 4 questions lined up, and I'm going to ask you guys to write them down to see how well you know each other. All right, so we're going to challenge the bromance here. So when you answer this, answer for the other individual. All right, it's first things first. Rooster took a little thunderbolt so you can figure it out. What year did the other person graduate high school?
Can I is there a time limit? Like I need to do
Yeah,
math.
now. Yeah,
And that's
like everything.
bullshit. That's not fair. Mine like just stop like oh man.
Yeah, if I had a little ding. All right. So we're gonna show and then we're gonna share on 3.
Like how oh man, I feel like I need to make it bigger. Okay.
It's a 4-digit number. It should be in the realm. Ready?
I only went 2.
Okay, so Rooster, tell me what there you believe Joe graduated in 2003. Joe, was he correct or incorrect?
Correct.
All right, so
Yes.
0.
Yes.
All right, Joe, what year do you think Rooster graduated high school?
This is gonna be funny.
94.
Yeah, you better believe it. 90s alternative and grunge, 1994.
Damn. All right.
Well done.
So no winner that round. The next
Well,
one.
we're both winners. More specifically, the bromance is winning.
Yeah. You're
No
winners in each
participation
other's
trophies
hearts.
on this episode.
No, we'll have a tiebreaker if we need to. Okay, you know my answer, especially if you listen to the episode that I was on. What was your least favorite race? Excuse me, what was the other individual's least favorite race they have ever done?
Damn it, I was about to write it for me because I know what he's going to write for me. So that sucked. His least favorite race he's ever done. I'm going to go on a limb with this one for a specific reason. What year?
And we're obviously
But like
expecting
man,
honesty here.
This is what happens when you get like 3 people that like overanalyze almost everything. It's like, well, I'm like, well, Rooster doesn't have a least favorite race because like inclusion happens.
There
But
is
I
a
wrote
right
one.
answer.
I
Yeah.
wrote one down.
I mean, mine is anything that starts with rag and ends with nar.
So
But-
hang on. So can to be honest though, if I say my answer as he holds it up, like there's no way to right.
we have a implicit honesty here.
Okay.
So
So
lie, cheater, steal.
So I think Joe wrote down for my answer, Ragnar, Tennessee, November of 2019, and that is exactly what he wrote.
I have an
down.
asterisk, so I couldn't remember the year.
Yeah. The reason for that, Tim Davis. Well, why should I tell? Why did you say that, Joe?
There we go.
And I'm acting like the host now. Stop.
No, that's kind of leads into little funny stories.
So, I mean, we all know that Ragnar is built on a foundation of lies anyway. So this could be, well, I guess it's not a lie because you just admitted that it was your. There was a lot of interesting things that Ragnar. I mean, it got really cold unexpectedly, and riders, things were freezing to their face, and then Rooster had some gut issues and had to walk up a hill backwards with his hands in his pocket. It was like the definition of like going internal and like taking your ball and going home, but he just like couldn't get home. So he was like, I'm just going to walk up this hill backwards. I don't care that I have 7 more miles in my leg. He was like, this is dumb. I don't want to do it. And I'll get there when I get there. And we're like, all right, well.
So for all
tomorrow.
I need to add, like, let's be clear. Riley, the rider for our team, she had the time of her life, and her
Smiley
mom was
Riley.
dude. It was for all the things that Ragnar is great. It was a great race, but just like in late 2022, when the polar vortex went all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, that happened that year. And it was literally 9 to 12 degrees at 3 a.m. while I'm having a diverticulitis attack. I'm walking backwards. I basically went internal, and there's videos to prove it. I didn't know I was having freaking attack. I was in a hospital literally 3 months later. But anyway, it was horrible for all those reasons, but not for Riley. Riley's awesome. Anyway, good job, Joe. Okay, Joe. So what did Rooster write down? What's the question, Tim?
What was the least favorite race that Joe has completed, and why do you believe so?
I think this might be the one where we like separate ways. I don't know. Boston 2018?
Oh, wow. See, no, I didn't go there at all. I went to that one time where I pushed the rider the whole time, and you never got to touch the chair or tie your shoes. So TLM, we did a 5K. So for the record, everybody, we're going to see you all at TLM here in like 2 weeks, and we're pumped. The Louisiana Marathon, Baton Rouge, it's a staple. We don't miss it. But a couple years ago, I was pushing Kendall. Joe came with me because he thought he could help me push Kendall in the 5K. Well, apparently, Joe never touched the chair. So he lets me know about that. And he lets me know that he didn't even have to tie his shoes to stay up with me.
I mean, the tying the shoes was probably an overindulgence from the night before, and like just bending over was not really the best option at that time. And it was really cold, so I was just like, yeah, hands are staying in pockets. But yeah, I do remember like a couple times being like, "You want to switch?" And you're like, "No." I'm like, "All right, well, it's over now." I think like that's the year Kyle was there, and we got the cool video of us like walking up like we're gonna like rob the bank, but no, we were going to run a 5K. So that
what was runner up for both of you guys in that case? Because this is pretty interesting because you guys exude positivity, or at least Rooster does. Joe has this great mask that he pulls down of positivity, but I've seen underneath it enough. What was runner up for each of you guys in terms of that was almost my least favorite.
Ashton in a hurricane, so like you just wet and cold, chairs falling off vans. It sucked. That's when I think we came up with or started saying, this sucks so bad it's just awesome. Like I'm not even gonna like look in my bag for anything dry because it doesn't exist anymore, and we're just gonna be wet, we're gonna be cold, and we're gonna deal with it. But then the reason I said Boston was for the same like reasons. Like there was a fire on a bus, it was snowing, and then it was sleeting, and then it was raining, and I ran with bagel sleeves over my hands because I was just cold and wet, and like I didn't know how bad of like shape I was in until I was in the shower back at the hotel and looked down and like blood was coming because I was chafed so bad. I was like, oh, now that like I was warming up and not numb anymore, I was like, well, this is terrible. But that was awesome for Ashton and Michael Davis. So yeah, chicks dig scars, I guess. I don't know.
I don't have a runner up, Tim. To me, that's not even fair, bro. I Ragnar 2019, I literally was having. So I did go on to run TLM half in 2 months later, and that became my last race, frankly, as a run streaker. Because for those of you who don't know, I ran 1,792 days in a row, and my last race in my run streak was that. And I just said 1792 was 1492 because I redefined how Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Yeah. Because and also there's a Counting Crows song called 1492. If you haven't heard it, it's really good. But anyway,
Riley ran the half that year, right?
Yeah, and so
and there's some awesome videos of that as well. Airplanes.
Yeah.
Riley and Rooster walking down like the airplane stairs backwards, like.
Yeah. And now, in hindsight, I know that I was walking down it backwards, not because my quadriceps hurt, but because my entire gut was having a diverticulitis attack for 6 months. But anyway.
Good, interesting race-related questions. So I got a big, heavy-hitting one. This is one of my favorite questions to ask anybody. I am also a zombie aficionado. So if you didn't know that, I love studying the art of zombies and zombie fighting. So zombie apocalypse breaks out, and you can have one item, but it can't be a firearm or a knife. So a non-traditional zombie fighting weapon. What is your choice?
And this is too easy. 6 months, a year ago, I forget, there was some footage that went viral of an individual getting into a confrontation in a store and assaulting a man with not your typical like zombie weapon, but it was a deuce, Twisted Tea. And while I don't have Twisted Tea, I do have a deuce of Miller Lite today for Miller time because I was excited about this episode. So Miller Lite Twisted Tea, not a sponsor yet, but I would hit him I would hit him and then chug it and then figure out my next weapon.
Well, usually at this point, the host says, "Welcome to Miller Time, ladies and gentlemen." It's that point in the show whenever everybody gets their favorite beverage, whether you're tube fed or not. Get your favorite beverage, sit back, relax, and let's enjoy. And then I say, "Joe, what are you drinking?" And never in the history of 25 episodes did he say a Miller Lite. Like,
And probably will be another 25. But it was, like you're just walking out of the store and you're like, oh, yeah, I need that later today. So I bought it.
wow, that's awesome.
That's
You know that the Together We Shall podcast Instagram follows past guests, but it also follows Miller Lite. And as a result, I get to see the Miller Lite posts from time to time, hoping that just one day they pay attention to us. Anyway, they should pay attention to this moment.
when Joe fights the zombie apocalypse with a 6-pack of tall boys.
Totally.
Rooster, your point about it being Miller Time connects directly to CJR for LSU. Ring a bell?
Yeah.
Okay.
LSU, that's the Tigers.
All right.
Is that actually, but is that Mike the Tiger himself, or is that our ambassador in New Orleans?
Ryan
Cardinal.
Okay. He asked, other than Miller Lite, what were your beverage choices?
We're going alcohol, right? Or like, 'cause I mean, I have to have water, but vodka is
there's people who disagree with the necessity for water. We met a lot of them in the moon force.
fair. Yeah. I like a good vodka too, or bad vodka, just vodka.
Well, now's his best time as ever to tell this story. I don't like hard liquor because it's unpredictable. Case in point, do I tell this story? I think I do.
I think
19,
yeah.
huh? Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like it's been
1996.
said before too.
On the podcast, I don't know, but like, bottom line up front, I woke up naked next to another naked man after a night of drinking hard liquor. So I don't drink hard liquor anymore. Because not because I was like terrified of waking up next to another naked man, but because I had no idea how we got to that point. And that's more. Yeah, I don't even know where I was going. It was the shock factor of waking up naked next to another man that I was going for there.
Context is gold right now. Were you at like, where were you at a rodeo? Were you at a church gathering? Like, how did this? What's the entry into this story? You can't just give us the destination.
Well, it was in Okinawa, Japan during a typhoon party, and we in Marines and typhoon parties in 1995, 6. So we had a long day of indulgence, and then that night we continued to the indulgence and moved from the beer to the hard liquor, absolute vodka, and suddenly I went on top of my TV stand and got a bottle of soju, which is Korean rice wine, put it on the table and said, "Whoever rolls doubles takes a shot." I mean, what kind of game is that? I remember the first person rolling doubles, and I think that's about it. And then
context, that's a good entry. So, typhoon party, if you haven't known about those, is they take a bunch of college age, so 18 to 28, and they tell them you can't leave your barracks, so get everything you need. So you end up seeing these individuals with little red wagons going back and forth to the duty stations store, either the package stores, as we call them, liquor stores. Basically, you get everything you can and you need for several days. And for a young Marine, if you're going to invest in anything, you're going to invest in spirits for morale, because the company gunny is probably going to drop off a big old crate of MREs, which are meals ready to eat. So that's traditional, good time fun of naked American times for 20-year-old Rooster.
Yeah, thank you.
Clinton era.
Yeah, oh, wow, I see what you did there. Don't ask, don't tell me nothing, cowboy. Anyway,
man.
Okay,
so we
Perfect.
Yeah.
The follow on to that, and this may be that. Do you not, or is there a specific liquor, one that you don't want to sponsor your podcast, that both of you will never touch again, or any type of drink you will never ever touch again?
No. It's, but I mean, especially if they're gonna be a sponsor. Like I have to give them a chance.
Yeah, I don't have any, man. I mean, if they want to sponsor the podcast, cool. I would be, they'd have to be, so Korean Rice Wine Company would have to be okay with me
Uh,
saying, I'm not drinking your product, but it works.
yeah,
It totally
that's
works.
As long as they
I'm
give Rooster like some apparel, though, he'll be in.
yeah.
Funny.
Korean white wine hoodies and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drink this. You
Yes.
could be naked with your friends.
Yes. Yeah, laugh it up, gentlemen. Laugh it up.
Okay, well, let's roll with a somewhat serious question. Nice transit, go flow. We don't go too far either direction. Debbie asked how you believe being part of Ainsley's Angels has impacted your parenting, Joe, if it has, with that assumption.
uh,
While Joe thinks about that, let me say the question's coming from Debbie Stakunas, which was our guest, remember, with Sarah a few episodes ago. And what a question coming from the parent that is Debbie, who might get like Parent of the Year for 2022. But yeah, Joe, that's enough stalling. How are you going to answer, Debbie?
I man, I don't, Debbie, I don't know. Like that's a tough one. I would need to like ponder that one because I only know being a parent since Ainsley's Angels. Like I don't have anything to compare it to before. So I don't know, but I mean, I would like to think that because of the like, you know, love and compassion and care that caretakers and runners and guardian angels show and give riders, like that I do that same, uh, you know, to my children, but not, I don't really have anything to measure it against.
Well, Ainsley's Angels of America does have a book named Born an Angel that Briley, Ainsley's oldest sister, wrote, and you have shared that with both of your sons. And if it didn't exist, I don't know if you would have grabbed the book that is about inclusion and read it to your sons. I'm not saying you wouldn't have, but that's an example of
Yeah.
maybe something that Ainsley's Angels brought into your life that you've now made it a point to share a story of Ainsley with your kids, perhaps, maybe.
Yeah, like I said, 26 episodes ago, right? Like I didn't know anyone with special needs until I knew Ainsley.
Yeah.
So like yeah, like the book from time to time when like out of the I don't even know how many books we have in this house for the kids, right? Like one of them grabs it and wants to read that one. It's exciting, especially for Owen, like understanding more, and I think he knows every character, whatever person in the book now. But like one day, like Riley has to read it to him. Type of thing.
Yeah,
I,
indeed.
I agree with you, Joe. I think similar boat. I think it's changed my perspective a lot as I don't know. I hate to use the word grown up, but I think there's like phases of adulthood, and some people progress through them quicker or slower. And just in like the time that I've been around Ainsley's Angels, I I can imagine what the type of parent I might have been, and it wouldn't have been a bad parent, per se, but I'm a better parent. But like I call all the kids that come that aren't riders, I call them junior guardian angels. Like that's like one of my things, and like
Mhm.
seeing like Paige is like a great example. Paige, Michelle Smith's daughter, is I remember rolling up to the first couple of races, and this was 10 years, almost over 10 years ago now, and seeing her evolve. And I was like, man, I was like, there's so many secondary and tertiary benefits to bring in your family they don't have a role. Like no one's asking them to put a chair together. They might help or stick around, but um, it makes the inclusive environment when you have like even more diversity interesting. So when I saw this question, the first thing that popped in my head, and I know you guys are going to be more observational. I didn't mean to put Joe like in an introspective spot.
Nah,
Junior guardian angel stories that might like strike you. So either maybe somebody who you've seen come along as like a behind their mom, their dad, their sister, their brother, and then become more involved.
there's so many. I mean,
So
and
many.
Paige is a great example, right? I mean, just saw her, the Frosty 5K here in Wilmington, and I remember as she came across the finish line, you know, second only because Gavin was first, right? Um, and talking about how excited she was and good race, and then she was like, "Oh crap, I PR'd too," and it's like I remember when she was seven, and Rooster far before that, and now here you are, like crushing, high school athletics and, getting ready to go off to college. I mean, and then you have like the Devin Davids. I mean, Briley wrote a book, but like wasn't a runner, and she wrote a book. That was her way of telling the story. And then she did Spotlight and all her blogging, and now she's an ambassador at her home away from home in college. Like that's a interesting hierarchy or transition period from sister to author to runner to media to ambassador, full on ambassador. She's always been an ambassador of inclusion, obviously, but like now, like running a location and being responsible for pairings and chairs and financials and all that. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I like that you kind of set me up well where I wanted to go with this. You mentioned Devin David. I mean, Devin was, gosh, way too young to be running 5Ks, some could argue, back in the day. And he went on to push riders in half marathons. And now he's a high school graduate and great runner and great advocate for what we do. It's cool to see him grow through Ainsley's Angels, almost being like the village that he grew up in. And it shaped the young man's perspective. His mom is Tracy, who is our senior vice president of membership, and Tracy has a sister named Tanya, who was our episode 24 guest that talked about placing her firstborn child up for adoption or for placing her child. And why am I making all those connections? Well, because this is my answer, Tim. Tracy and Tanya have a brother. His name is Tad. And some of you have met Tad, and many of you have met him and may not even know that you met him because that's how humble he is. He's a behind the scenes, just like Reagan McGee, Tanya's husband. Tad just behind the scenes gets stuff done, humble, loving, caring. You might not know, to answer your question, he has 3 children of his own, and his youngest is Ben. And Ben McDaniel is the ultimate definition of a junior guardian angel becoming a full-born guardian angel in all of its capacity. I don't know that he's ever run a race, but he's been to more races than many of our listeners, and he's always there finding his purpose in setting the chairs up and getting everyone situated and doing it with no expectation of anything in return. And why does he do that? Because he watched his dad do it. And I'm getting chills just playing this out in my head and visualizing it. When you become the light or the example, and it's so strong and powerful that it leads people to finding their happy spot, or frankly, their purpose, their passion, like what else is life about? So Tim, thanks, man, for the junior guardian angel question, because it's such a, you said secondary, tertiary. This is a 15th order effect that none of us ever thought of when this thing became an entity. It's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's a like one of my favorite little parenting cliches is kids don't listen, they watch. And that really, I've noticed it. Like I noticed it then. Like I used to, if I got my elementary education bachelor, so I did a lot of time, and I worked in the middle schools, and people would ask about Ainsley's Angels. And the initial response is, it's always, how can I help or what can I do once they find out the mission? But then they say, well, my daughter or my son, they're too young to push, or just bring them. By being part of an inclusive environment, I've seen individuals who were junior guardian angels in school situations, right? And I've seen the way they've interacted with, the students from maybe the EC classrooms, and it's been admirable. And I would, be ignorant to say that wasn't because, not necessarily exposure, but they're brought around there. They're like you said, they've seen the example of what can happen, and what can happen is you can just meet great people and do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, instilling the values of giving, giving back, and at the same time, physical and mental health that comes from fitness.
Daddy Let Me is probably one of my favorite and least favorite things that I hear on a daily basis. Daddy, let me make soup. Whoa, Daddy, let me cut that orange. Whoa. But that's eventually what you see at these races is, Daddy, let me put this chair together. Daddy, can I push? Or mommy or sister or whatever you're working with. And like you said, that's the fitness aspect is great, Joe. I didn't consider that, but I think it's just another reason. Like it's another reason to wear pink and just have a great time. If somebody wants to start running, obviously, hopefully with Ainsley's Angels, but just start running. What's your elevator pitch of advice, Rooster?
Like, does it have to be running? Like, if so, obviously context would help here. But if somebody came to me and they're like, "Man, I really want to start running," my answer would actually go to movement. And we've talked about movement in the first season quite a bit. But like, you don't have to just go right into "I'm gonna run," but rather I'm going to move. And if you can move every day, that's going to help you in a whole bunch of ways. And even if you use a wheelchair to navigate your life and your journey, by getting out there and feeling the fresh air and having the wind and being around other people and getting to this point where this being outside moving becomes something that you can feel it and all that it is. So like, I guess my answer, Tim, would be like, it all goes back to like, don't feel like you have to like become a runner or some amazing athlete, but rather just start with just moving and create a plan for it. And as you go, you may be like, you know what, I'm good. I've rolled enough, I've walked enough, and now I want to go a little bit faster. Well, maybe those two can come together. The person that wants to go faster, that uses a wheelchair, can become one of our riders. And the person that wants to walk faster / run can push one of our riders. And then you have unity and you have belonging and you have family. And how beautiful is that?
Yeah, I mean, like Rooster said, like as I'm getting older, physically, mentally, whatever you want to call it, getting semi more mature. I'm a huge fan of the movement matters, and like you have to move for a purpose, whatever that purpose is. If it's lowering your A1C, if it's you want to run a 5K and you've never ran a 5K, if you want to run, swim, walk backwards with it, anything like that, like figure out why and move move forward to catch that goal and you know live uplifted.
Are you familiar with
Wow.
the term SMART goal?
Yeah, specific,
That's like,
measurable, attainable, realistic, and time relevant.
yep, time bound. I would say
Time bound.
that's, yeah, and that's what, yeah, that's what I've been getting a lot of questions about. How do you do that? Just goals, but the goals can't just be, I want to run fast. It's like, okay, where are you at right now? You're at a 12-minute mile over 2 miles. Let's try a 12-minute over 3 or an 11-minute in 2. Like, let's set a goal, all those things. And I think that's where, in my opinion, a lot of people fail with their, not necessarily fitness goals, but really life goals. As I get a chance to do that with a lot of people that I work with and mentor, um, we either reach too far or we shortchange where we could reach to. Um, but no, it's insightful what you guys have to say about that, because that's a great point about um, forward movement is the most daunting but the most effective, and it can be easy. I mean, I've dealt with depression myself. I know everybody here has had different mental health struggles or hurdles or however you want to look at them, but you haven't dealt with like serious depression where I'm on an alarm, jump out of bed, try to do as much stuff. You guys know that about me, but there was a period in my life where I couldn't even not hit snooze. Like, I would say, I'm not gonna. My only goal tomorrow was not hit snooze, and I hit snooze 3 times. So, in that vein, is there portions of being involved, because you guys are both involved at several levels, and I think most of our listeners know that. You're not just running, you're at events helping, doing what would be considered guardian angel stuff. You're definitely doing higher end administration, leadership. Would you be willing to share, open to share a connection that Ainsley's Angels, maybe a lesson or an event that has helped you build resiliency? Really, resiliency is that aspect of, mentally, morally, spiritually overcoming and growing from what might be called considered a traumatic or challenging event. So,
Talking to you two, it's easy to say this because we, you know, embodied it for 2+ decades, right? So that's that next, man up type of thing. So if it doesn't matter what it is, if you're running and you can't, and the next person steps up to do it, or if you're cooking and get hurt and your sous chef steps up, it administratively, you know, for sure. I mean, you have looking at or listening to two Marines that spend a lot of our time in QuickBooks, like, a financial software application, managing the charity's funds, with the oversight of a, you know, accountant. But like I never thought that I would be, you know, entering checks for a nonprofit into QuickBooks. Never in my wildest dreams. But, Rooster years ago said he needed help, and I said okay, and whatever that help has been, I just, it's that next man up. You need someone to do it, as you say. Who's going to carry the boat? Who's going to enter the data? Who's going to learn how to build a CRM? Like we're just those three types of individuals. That's the next man up, and we've all been there, I think, too, especially with like running, where someone's been hurt. I ran Marine Corps Marathon in 2014 with Ainsley because Rooster couldn't, because he was injured. So, okay, yeah. And so it was me, Leanne, and Laura Moreno pushing two riders, which was interesting. Maybe not like the best scenario, but it was the next man and woman up in that scenario. So, and just then move forward. You know what I mean? Like, Suck It Up, Buttercup, a book by Guardian Angel, Rob Cass.
I love that. I like your answer. I like where you went with it. I was thinking along the lines of like, I guess like Ainsley's Angels has given me personally purpose. So the Travis Manion Foundation, which I'm heavily involved in, has a value. And one of the values is, and they say this all the time, and it's pretty powerful and it resonates with me well, is that purpose starts with passion. Well, I found a passion for running with my daughter and the happiness that it brought her. And along the way, like that passion became stronger than my passion for being a Marine. And like that's a big statement. And as time went on, the passion became the purpose. So, whereas I thought maybe my purpose in life was to become a national security advisor to the executive department, which, by the way, used to be a goal that I was aspiring to, I've now realized that it's nowhere close to that. And being comfortable, so what Ainsley's Angels has taught me in this journey is being comfortable with allowing a passion shift to happen. And once you get to that level of comfortability, you can truly find purpose and live purpose. And it's special. It's so neat. And so being able to then share that with other people is almost like a gift that I expect myself to do. Make sure people are aware of this idea that it's okay to have a complete shift in what drives you. Anyway, I could go on
Yeah,
so
I
many
mean
other tangents.
but that's perfect in life. I mean, and like Ross said, pivot, right? There's shifts in life, and I think like Darlene, episode, I
14.
forget, 14, guest, in a conversation her and I were having, and we both talked about like our relationship with Darlene and reaching out and asking questions, and she was the one who told me like that's going to happen. Passions are going to shift, goals are going to shift, right? And the reason is goes back to the like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, you can't answer that because you're never not growing. So like you growing up as a whatever rank, intel professional wanted to be here, but then that shifted, right? Because you're still growing and you grew out of, that thing. I mean, in 2008 when I met you, like, yeah, you were the guy that they were going to have to like drag out of the building. Like, I'm not leaving the Marine Corps, right? And that shifted.
That's a real hot topic. I work in veterans transition, excuse me. And Rooster, I use you as an example, along with one of Joe and I's friends, Mike Delancey, in taking something that is close and you're passionate about and being willing to make the jump. It's something that I think a lot of people can align with in terms of I have found something that motivates me, that helps others, that makes me happy at the end of the day. It's difficult for people who aren't as close to the middle of the organization, as we'll call it, to understand everything that goes into all that you do, but it is easy for everybody to see the passion that you guys bring into that. And it in itself is inspiring to other causes. I use the examples of what the families inside our network and do every day, and it's something that we can all draw inspiration from. With that, we got some other questions here while we're throwing compliments at you. Briley wanted to know what your 2023 resolutions were.
So my resolution for this year is to just do better. I think I've said that for years now. I used to be that guy that had a specific resolution, but then there's a shift, there's a pivot, right? It wasn't a smart, you know, goal. So I just be better, than I was in the past, whatever that is. If that's, you know, healthier, smarter, read another book, whatever, just be better. That's kind of like my, I don't know, mantra or whatever it is. And because of that, like I did make a purchase. I bought an ice barrel. It's a big bucket essentially that you put water in, and luckily right now I don't have to put ice in it because it's about 42 degrees, and get in it for a set length of time or until you can't take it anymore, and it just helps a lot. You forces you to control your breathing, which as we know, and then the fitness world and with kids, it allows you to take a step back, control my breathing, then assess the situation by just an abrasive reaction type of thing. And it's got all sorts of central nervous system, skin, joints, muscles, yada yada yada. McRaven said about like making your bed. It's like the first task of the day is completed. Well, that's like easy for me now, right? Making the bed, right? Where like, in high school or something that wasn't easy. But now where it's like, hey, I got to get in this bucket. It's not going to be comfortable, but I just have to do it because it's like the first hard task, the first like roadblock or hiccup of the day. And it's like, you're going to have those every day. Every day, something's going to like cause you to take a step back and like assess and hopefully push forward. So I get in there and it doesn't matter. I mean, today was like 2 minutes. I was like, I'm done. That's it. But I did it. And that's kind of like the being better, like understanding that you're going to have pushback every day and to assess and going back to the movement thing, just keep moving forward. So yeah, be better. Get an ice bucket. Ice Barrel is not a sponsor yet, either.
Yeah, but so just to context, this is literally like a 50-gallon barrel that you put oil in, but in this case, it's full of water, and it's got a thermometer on it, and it's somewhere in the ballpark of 40 and 60 degrees. And Joe had to get in there first for like a minute, and then for like 4 minutes, and over time, he's built his ability to stay in there for a longer period of time.
Watching, and look, I got my Ainsley's Angels hoodie on.
Yeah.
Or my beanie, rather. You can't wear a hoodie into the ice.
I mean, you could.
Oof.
Rooster, New Year's resolutions?
Yeah. So Briley knows that I would answer this with, I don't make resolutions. I'm the type of person that, and so she doesn't want that answer. Instead, I'm just going to give her this one. I'm going to continue to focus on trying to make sure that I can get ahead of those moments of the day that are full of stress or anxiety or take me into a darker place. And what I mean by getting ahead of it means I'm going to allow it to come in, but I'm going to try with intent. If I need to go lay down in the bed with some headphones on and listen to calming music, I'm going to just go do it. I'm not going to try to battle it throughout the day, because eventually it just gets to a point where I can't get ahead of it. And I don't know how to articulate that to anyone that's listening, but like I think every day you get to a point in your journey, or at least once a week or once a month, I don't know, where you feel overwhelmed and you can't catch your breath. And so I think if we take time every day when we're feeling those feelings to like address them in that moment and not be scared to address them or feel like you're weak if you address them or it's awkward to address them. No, it's normal to address them. So my goal is to address those things every day.
Yeah. I put these on the other day and put on the spa like playlist, and while I was cooking dinner, because it was just chaos, 3 and 5-year-old, 4 to 7, PM to 7 PM is just, it's like, God, what did you guys eat? And I couldn't let them completely distract me from cooking dinner and the things I do. So I had to put these on. I could still hear it and I was aware of it, but it allowed me to take a few minutes, take a couple deep breaths, and realize, all right, got it under control now. I can take these off, try to get them calm, eat their dinner, and go on. And that's something that like takes work.
But so to the point though is that if you don't take those 30 seconds to a minute to do that, Joe, then you're going to release elsewhere, and your release would be on your sons. You would lose your mind on them being little boys, and that's not fair to them. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to your wife. It's not fair to humankind. And so, hats off to you for throwing on your headphones and giving yourself a timeout. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that self-awareness in itself can be hard to obtain, and I think that's what I've gotten the most out of growing up is like Joe said, the ability to say, whoa, this is not a good, we're at a fork in the road, and it's easier to go right, but I need to go left, and that's maturity. I tell people all the time, I'm old, I'm about to be 39, and people are like, you have a toddler, do you wish you started younger? And I go, no, because 22-year-old Tim, minus my life experiences, maturity, and whatnot, would have taken the easier path at least a couple of times. I probably still do, from an observational period. But as a husband, as a father, just as a person in society, it's harder to take a step back. There's a really good transition point here, because while we're talking about New Year's resolution, New Year 2023, this podcast is going to have a new segment. And that segment is going to be called Tales from the Course. And I know Rooster is very excited to bring this to everyone. We've got a enthralling story from a runner, and I don't want to take any of the thunder away from the way this is going to go. So, Rooster, would you like to share the new segment?
Yeah, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. So our ambassador in Kansas, Craig McDaniel, had the idea about how he's going to go out and he's going to put these stories together so we can spotlight them in our episode. And the one that we're going to do today, gosh, it's kind of placed in a good spot, Tim. Thanks for queuing it up right here. I'm going to just read what I was sent by Craig, and then we're going to kind of talk about it for a minute. As Angel runner Emily Miller of our Wichita, Kansas ambassadorship towed the starting line as part of Team Bella at the 2022 Prairie Fire Spring Half Marathon, she did so with a heavy heart. Back in October of 2021, her daughter Kelsey had passed away from a fentanyl overdose. The pain of her passing was still at sometimes debilitating and very struggleful. She found herself lending her legs for the second time with Ainsley's Angels that day, struggling with her loss. Amy had been through hell and back with Kelsey, as Kelsey struggled with addiction over the years. Through it all, Amy never saw her daughter as the junkie others would deem her, but a young lady with a good heart and with so much more to give the world. On this day, Amy said, one of the first things I noticed about Bella was the resemblance she had with Kelsey when she was younger, especially when she smiled. Keeping in mind, friends, that Bella was the young person that Amy was going to be pushing in this race today. As the half marathon got underway, Amy loved looking down at Bella, and that same smiles, very similar, as they raced around the streets of downtown Wichita. That's when one of Amy's worst nightmares became a realization. The race course would take her by the very house where her daughter had been found deceased in less than 6 months before. She had avoided the area since Kelsey's death and had not ventured anywhere near that house or even the neighborhood because of what happened there. As they both approached the house, Amy stated, all I could picture was curling up in a ball and crying. I couldn't, though, because I was with Bella. Finally, about 100 yards from the house, panic-stricken, I looked down with tears in my eyes at Bella's beautiful smile face and somehow got the words without asking if she was ready to go fast. Bella laughed, smiled back at me, and nodded. That's all it took. I beat that pavement with my feet and just ran past that house as fast as I could. Amy smiled. Amy stated there was no way that she could have ever done that by herself. She was just so happy. Amy said it with that this experience that assisted her in her therapy and facing her fears and her triggers. It was a breakthrough for me and my grief. Amy remarked, when I run together as part of an angel team, I get to see their smiles and their joyfulness, and that's what life is all about, sharing joy. They give me hope and purpose, and that's a gift that I still desperately need. More, It helps me see that even though I have lost my daughter, I am a whole person and I have purpose. And for that, I'm so grateful and thankful and honored to be part of such a wonderful organization. In 2021, there were 108,000 drug overdoses that resulted in death in America. 72,000 were due to opioids, fentanyl. If you or somebody you know is struggling with drug addiction, help is available nationally through the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration at 1 800 662 HELP, 24/7, 365 days a year. Thank you, Amy, for sharing this extremely vulnerable story, allowing Ainsley's Angels of America to be part of your healing journey.
Powerful is an understatement. That's
The thing about that, y'all, is never would you have thought when you created an organization to help with inclusion of those with different abilities to be able to do a road race, would it have this level of effect so far removed from the execution of inclusion in an endurance event, but at the same time so powerful in the life journey. I just And this happens every day. These are tales of the course that I'm exposed to from our ambassadors and our runners and our family members, that they're experiencing this level of movement emotionally. That, like, gosh, what a blessing to be part of this journey. Thanks, Craig, for capturing that. And if you have something that you would like to submit for reading on our podcast, please podcast at ainsleysangels.org, and we can get you in touch with Craig, and he can travel the journey with you to help us create something that we can share in episode 27 and beyond. I don't really know where to go from here.
yeah. That's you want to that might be a good and as a punctuation for the episode if you want to do flow into the closeout.
I don't think it's, and I don't remember either what the full vision is, but like talking about Amy and Kelsey, and then Amy and Bella, I mean, just fucking yesterday I sent you both
Yeah.
there's enough fentanyl to kill everybody in America. Like we could go down a tangent on a good one, obviously,
Yeah.
about drugs and addiction and all that. But I think the the presence that article, if you would, gave, and then just the pause is enough. We do have to, because our cycle of podcasts, bring it back in. So I think there was a long enough pause, right, where Rooster, you can edit it, and then Rooster, you or me or Tim, someone will then says, well, as we wrap out this, episode, we always want to end on a positive type of thing. Not saying that wasn't a positive story. So I'm trying to figure out the wording.
Yeah.
But we could go back, because I know to go back to one final question from Instagram. I know there were some silly ones about talk about why I eat like a toddler, and stuff like that.
What's the that's what I say is what's the bridge? That's kind of why I was pausing here, because that was powerful. Rooster, I don't know how you read that without
I don't
breaking it down multiple times.
I don't have anything to say to that.
Yeah, that's
yeah, well, I did broke down.
I mean, multiple, not being able to finish. Yeah, Joe, that's kind of where I'm this was what? How do we want? I mean, I've got 4 or 5 fun ones, but I don't know what the tone or transition is.
So listen, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not editing any of that. I'm going to keep that whole conversation we just had, because it's real and it's authentic. And at the end of the day, none of us, I never read this all the way through. It was my first time to read it all the way through. And in fact, I don't think I'm ever going to read them all the way through. I'm going to really trust Craig to present them the way he did here. And so our authentic reaction after hearing that is all of this conversation. And our flow of our podcast is one where we do some deep dives, and we just dove. But we always like to come back out, and we like to end on some positive notes. So let's just keep rolling with it, Tim. Like, we acknowledge that was heavy. And some people are feeling some sort of way. And between the national hotline for mental health, however you're feeling, like, there's help available and you're not alone, because you're seeing three dudes that are feeling some sort of way after hearing that. So Tim, like, it's okay. Let's naturally dig out of this. Go ahead. Make us laugh.
No, that's, I think that's no pressure.
Yeah.
I think there's two important save rounds, a recurring theme in commentary towards Joe Orth, other than why can't you wear normal shorts, is usually geared towards your eating. So why do you eat like a toddler? That question is coming in hot from Patrick Fellows. And there's an insinuation from Briley that it is heavy in the food category of Taco Bell.
Last night, the boys had chicken nuggets, tater tots, and mac and cheese. Who doesn't want those things? I mean, come on. Unless you're
gluten
vegan,
gluten-free
and severely lactose intolerant, you don't want any of that stuff. But I mean, I had a really nice reverse seared smoked filet that I destroyed with some asparagus. But naturally, like, there was some leftover tater tots and mac and cheese from the kids. So, like, I'm going to get that too. So, the eating like a toddler, it's typically on either the front or the back end of what I think was a good adult meal of a nice smoked reverse seared filet and asparagus.
Joe, you remember the first time you ever went through a Taco Bell line with me?
I think so, yes. And like,
you told the story before. You're like, dude, he pulled up and then
he just pulls up and he's, ordering, and I'm like, is he ordering for me? Like, that's a lot of items. And then like they're like, he asks for, and I always mess this up. Like, he's like, can I get a Dr. Pepper? And they're like, is Mr. Pibb okay? And he's like, well, no, it's not. And then he's like, what do you want? I'm like, a lot just happened right now. Let's just get out of here. I don't want to be involved anymore.
I was like, Joe, here, I'll just order for you, man. Joe wants a blah, 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 blah. He's like, oh, okay, let's do that. So then we rode away and we ate and we were happy for at least an hour.
Rode away into the sunset. Like, I feel like that needs to be like a cartoon, like the car going over the hill and you guys just eating Taco Bell in the back.
It's funny because, like, I think that, like, obviously there's like the gray zone for everything, if you would, but like, there's people that like Taco Bell and there's people that don't. There's not the like, yeah, maybe I could have Taco Bell today. It's like, no, it's yes or no. Like, you either like Taco Bell or you don't. And it all has to do with like upbringing and collecting change to go. Like, for me, like, there was one, I could ride my bike, I could rollerblade, I could skateboard up there. Like, so that was it. Like, and it was like, for me, it was Taco Bell that Rooster and I have been to many a times outside Dam Neck, Virginia. But it's like, there was that, KFC and Pizza Hut. And like, KFC is more expensive. And like, I couldn't go in to Pizza Hut, with myself and my other 8-year-old, 10, 12-year-old friends, however old we were. Like, no. So yeah, Taco Bell. And then like, if you had like an extra coin or something, there was that game where you could put it in and then trickle it in. You could get in. You would hope you would win an extra soft taco. Because that quarter wasn't enough to get one, but if it landed on that platform, then it was, and you were stoked. Yeah.
There's a whole lot. I don't even know. That's a lot of information that you just said, and some super great reflective memories. But did you know that Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and KFC, the three places you mentioned, are all owned by Yum Brands? YUM.
Who's not a sponsor
yet. Yes, we know somebody though.
Taco Bell. Joe's blood runs with Baja Blast and picante sauce. Get him on your pay rosters.
Actually, see, I really do love the Baja Blast.
Yeah, of course you do.
But I'm not really like the sauce guy. I think my problem is like, everything's like tucked and rolled, and I'm like, opening it up. I don't have time for that. And then putting it on top, then it gets. I just go.
I have, like you should do like an undercover boss where you just apply, but like you just apply for Taco Bell and just work there for a day and just gorge yourself, like one for you, one for me, and like like check in on Snapchat, and then when they fire you, you'd be like, oh yeah, hey, sorry, I actually have a real job. I just did this because I wanted some tacos.
Yeah.
There's people listening and they're like, wait, didn't Rooster say earlier that he had like a diverticulitis attack, and no wonder he's eating all this Taco Bell? Well, that's kind of true. And so after that happened, I didn't eat Taco Bell for a long, long time. And to this day, I rarely eat it, only because my gut health doesn't allow it. But if Joe and I do a Ragnar again, I would definitely get a bean burrito with sour cream. So I will stay loyal.
I understand. I have a lot of core memories.
It's definitely
with
one of
Taco
those
Bell
things
as well.
you can't eat like weekly. I mean, you can't.
What?
My wife,
can.
my wife
But,
would
like,
disagree with you immensely.
You shouldn't eat weekly. But yes.
Okay. What else we got here? Remember, we're running out of time. Is there any cool questions left?
I have a question that is interesting to me, because Joe, I've known you 20 years. More so the last 10, we've gotten to know each other better. Rooster, I've known you as well, and I still find like following you guys on social media or just talking to you in passing, like some type of interesting factoid, or like when you were like counting crows. Like if someone is close to you, they may know that. But if they follow you on social media and they see you go bonkers for counting crows, like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. So what is something that people who don't spend every day with you would be surprised to know about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's very similar to you actually, right? I mean, you got, I'm approaching 20 years total time in service, right? And you're retired Marine, but like we both do have a passion for education. I mean, you're getting ready to be a doctor, right? And I got my master's and extra graduate certificates in project management. Like, so we may not, we may look like, bald or not bald with beards and love talking about scotch and Miller Lite and Taco Bell and lifting things up and, but we believe in education, and like that's something that's like that you never stop, growing up, like you never stop learning. Like learn something. If someone wants a New Year's resolution, learn something every day. Like it's the simplest thing. Like learn something new every day, even if it's a metric conversion, Celsius Fahrenheit. All right, good. Learn something new every day, and I think that's something that all three of us with multiple higher level, degrees and experience believe in, that education is knowledge is power, right? Like education is important to all of us.
I would go with a play on what you said earlier about Roosters positive and positivity and all that stuff. And I would say that, like, while that is true, don't believe that every single thing of my life is positive. Meaning that don't think that I am 100% positive every day and every minute, because I'm also human. And it's taken me some time to get to a spot where I can embrace the humanity that is dark clouds. And at risk of taking us down a depressive ending to this podcast, I'm going to say it this way. When you can be in touch with the dark cloud and see the dark cloud and feel the dark cloud, then you're really living all that life has to offer, because there's beauty in watching the dark cloud move in the sky and be replaced by a beautiful blue sky. There's less beauty in just seeing a beautiful blue sky all the time. You need to change it up, and being able to overcome that and get to the other side of the dark cloud, that's what fuels my ability to be positive, because I'm so grateful for when I can have such positivity. So that might surprise somebody. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I like that the relative. I call it relative value. Like if you don't have the low to contrast the high, and you're just looking at sea level, those small victories, those days that I did get up, and I didn't press snooze, like I can contrast them. But that's a really good, Rooster. I didn't think about that, but that really is one of the things as someone who knew you as the boss. Like, I don't know if you remember our first phone call. You were like very sternly talking to Shannon about what she needed to do for the first ever Ainsley's Angels in California. I was like, man, this guy's kind of pretty restrictive on what you're going to do. I was like, you want to be a part of this? And I was confusing your wanting the event to be perfect or as perfect as possible for the riders with, a lack of trust and confidence in Shannon's execution, Shannon, my wife. But as I've gotten to know you, you then went through this phase where you were like, man, this is Captain Happy. Like, I don't understand. Like, if I stole his shoes, he'd be like, oh, great, I get to feel the ground. But as you've shared a lot, just appreciative on behalf of the far ends of Ainsley's Angels family, as you shared a lot, especially in your own personal struggles and your family struggles, and allowed us to see you be resilient. I love that word. Be resilient and go through that. It kind of allows us to understand that, I don't want to say we've put you on a pedestal, but that pedestal has a ladder that we can all like climb up there and be there with you. So thank you for that. And if you've only caught part of the Ainsley's Angels message and you just see Kim Rooster Rossiter shooting everybody with rainbow sunshine gun ammunition, like he said, that's fun to share. So, but thank you for that. So I think like right now is a really good and interesting point that's going to allow us to close this up, because otherwise Joe's going to crush too many of those Miller Lights and it's not going to be as enjoyable. But I know there's a lot of questions. I didn't see them all, but thank you for those that have listened. We'll get to more questions. If you enjoyed this, let Joe and Rooster know. I am more than willing and happy to come back. If you got something to share, or if there's a burning issue, get in touch via the many ways to talk to the Together We Shall podcast, which Rooster will sum up in closing.
Yeah, so you can email podcast at ainsleysangels.org and like us on Instagram. You can also find us at come on, dude. If you like what you're hearing, man, keep subscribing on all the things and let's do it. But in sincerity, on behalf of Joe and I, man, I just want to say thanks, Tim, for accepting the invitation to kick off this 2023 season. Our goal is to have 2 episodes a month, and I'm looking forward to having you back at some time to potentially do this. That is, unless we get too many emails to podcast at ainsleysangels.org that say Tim should never come back. But in episode 27 is going to be cool. We're pumped for it. Joe, you want to give a little teaser?
The guest for episode 27 is just a Superman type of individual. Has some physical ailments, but that has not stopped him from qualifying for Boston, pushing multiple times. He leads a local running group. He's an angel pusher, dad, retired service member, just an all-around awesome person. So you can put those few pieces together. You know who our guest for 27 is, and look forward to releasing that one.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So, Tim, in closing, what is something you want to leave our Together We Shall audience with?
Don't be afraid. And it's like, not to be too deep with it, but there's something that you want to do right now, whether it's with Ainsley's Angels and it's push a farther distance, to push it all, to commit time, to whatever, or it might be personally, but that motto has helped me. It helped me make 2022 one of the best years of my life, despite some of the worst struggles and even some losses. And the reason it was good was because it's shown progression and strength, and it's put me in a better place.
You know what? I got enough.
He's in charge.
We're done. This was good.
Yeah, we're done here. The structure of this building has reached its capacity.
Find your people, and if they make you feel sexy, even better.